Canada believes freedom of expression is at the core of human individuality and is one of the essential foundations of a safe and prosperous society. The right of everyone to hold opinions without interference and the right of freedom of expression are in Article 19 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and reaffirmed in Article 19 of the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. This includes the freedom to seek, receive, and impart information and ideas of all kinds, whether orally, in writing, or in print, or through any other media sources such as which you may be viewing this on now. Hello everyone, welcome to another edition of Metis Warrior here with Timothy and Alexandria.
Hello everybody.
So as many of you know, our t-shirts have shipped out. Lots and lots of t-shirts have shipped out. You'll see a lot of people wearing them. On our page, you see Louis D. Jagger wearing one. It seems like grown men and women are taking exception to what Louis decided to wear. And it's only a handful of people. Let's keep that in mind. It's this same handful of people that after this 22nd interim president comes along, and there's a lot of changes about to be made. I'm sure a lot of these handful of people are going to probably be changing their attitudes towards some certain people out there. But you're always going to have a handful of people that's going to have something negative to say, right? Louis is happily in a relationship, number one. So I don't think he gives a rat's ass what any grown man or woman wants him to wear. To those people, what I will tell you is this. Close your eyes and imagine Louis dressed as you want him to be dressed. Because that's as close to that fantasy as you're ever going to get it. Alright? So let's understand with t-shirts, okay? I want to smarten some people up out there. Because with t-shirts, people wear t-shirts. It does not mean they're affiliated with a group or whatever that's on the t-shirt. Louis is not affiliated with us. He's a fan of the show. He listens to the show. And you know what? He supports, as a Métis leader, he supports Métis artists and Métis shows, which some of the so-called, in quotation marks, Métis leaders out there does not do. They support nepotism. But Louis supports Métis artists and shows. Let's understand that. So there's no affiliation there. Louis D. Jagger does not agree with everything that we say and do. Okay? Point blank, he don't. And I can tell you that for a fact. However, he agrees with most of what we say and do, and he supported our show by wearing our shirt. Yeah, absolutely. And he's not the only one. There's a lot of people you're going to be seeing out there walking around with a Metis Warrior t-shirt on. So you just better damn get used to it, because as an adult myself, I cannot understand why other adults take issue with what other people are wearing. Why in the hell would that upset somebody? It makes no sense to us, because if you scroll down our shows that we've done, we fought for the Métis people across the nation, and the real nation, not the damn blob. But let me tell you, we fought for the Métis people across the nation, and we fight for equal and fair treatment. So when somebody wears a shirt that stands for fighting against corruption and fighting for fair and equal treatment for all Métis, why does that upset the handful of people? And it's just a little bit of people that upsets, because there's thousands of people that it don't upset. So you better wake up and worry about your own self and stop worrying about what shirt somebody is wearing.
Well, you know what? It's just the same very small group of people out there that's all over social media. Something comes up and they've got their negative post all over. But that group is slowly but surely shrinking. That group is shrinking because it's the same old people singing the same old song and dance. And you know what, folks?
Before you get into that, let me say this. There's one lady out there in particular who's claiming to know people's genealogy, and she is full of shit. I can tell you that. She doesn't know that. She's out there posting absolute lies about people's genealogy, and it's absolute lies, but she's out there doing it, and she's one of these handful of people. But go ahead.
Well, this individual too is claiming to speak for all Indigenous people, and when I read that in her own words, I just about barfed up my popcorn, folks, because to have the audacity to say that you can speak for all Indigenous people, man, you got some kind of balls to have to say that. But you know what, folks?
No, they ain't got no damn balls. If they did, they most of these people are keyboard warriors.
And in my opinion, they're nothing but trolls. Yes. They're negative trolls all over, planting negativity, attacking Indigenous people, and that's shameful. Just a character trait that is very shameful. But you know, folks, in between the tons of t-shirt orders that we've been putting out to everybody out there, we thank everybody. We've been super busy in between doing our crawfish boil, popping tons of popcorn. We've got our ear to the ground with all the happenings with Métis people right across Canada. The most exciting happening is the MNC Board of Governors will convene on June 22nd, 2021 to appoint an interim MNC president as per the MNC bylaws until an election can be held. So the people that have their underwear in a twist or a knot about a simple t-shirt, maybe you should be really concerned about what's going to be coming down the pipeline when a new interim MNC president is going to take the helm. What's really going to go down? And a lot of these so-called trolls, etc., you may want to check your loyalty, where your loyalties are going to be. It
should be within the Metis Nation to have transparency and equal and fair treatment. That's where the loyalty should be.
Well, no, they're too busy worrying about somebody wearing a t-shirt and all that kind of stuff. That's not something that is a matter that is of grave concern to Métis people right across Canada. It's actually disgusting, and it's really silly, and it's very childish. You should be focusing on uniting Métis people right across Canada, folks.
And yeah, they should be focusing on that, and also they should be realizing that Lewis supporting us, a Métis show, we're not the only Métis artist that Lewis supports. He supports a lot of Métis artists. And I can tell you that is awesome, because we have so-called leaders out there that show zero support for a lot of the Métis artists and shows out there. And so understand that.
And there's a lot of people, it all comes down to jealousy. I think really Lewis has the confidence to wear the t-shirt without fear of anything. And the people that are attacking Lewis really lack the confidence in themselves to be able to be really who they are. And it's really, really sad, folks. And again, there's historic times that are coming. Real change is coming down the pipeline.
And people should be nervous.
There's a lot of people that should be nervous.
Because when this interim president gets in there, there's a lot of changes coming. Let me tell you who should be nervous, and let me explain that. The people that should be nervous is the people that have partook in corruption and misappropriation of funding. Hint, hint. You should be on edge, because guess what? When we get the new interim president in the MNC, there's going to be 100% full transparency for all Métis people on just what the hell has been going on with a lot of things that we had questions about.
And there's going to be a lot of shakeups, and it's simply not the shakeup of shaking salt over your hot buttered popcorn. There's a lot of people that should be really squirming now to wonder what's going to come down the pipeline. And instead of worrying about a t-shirt, you should have worried about what you should feel secure about. And really, did you serve the Métis people instead of serving yourself, folks?
Yeah, and there's a lot of people, nepotism. I mean, they're serving themselves. They're worried about themselves only for the last years and years and years, and the few that's around them. And so the problem with that is, when we get a fair president in there, for what we're hearing, it's going to be Gerald Moore.
He's a good, grunting, positive candidate.
Now, I can say I personally don't know a lot about Gerald Moore, but I can tell you that's going to be one hell of an improvement over Chartier, because anybody at this point, anybody that's outside of Chartier and those within his circle, will be a hell of an improvement over what the hell's been going on. You people should not be pissed off about the change that's coming. you should be happy that finally fair and equal treatment is going to be coming. And there's a lot of information. We could have put stuff in this show that would have absolutely shocked you about some Métis leaders. They could have shocked you to the core. And then you would have questioned, why in the hell were you supporting this person? Because, you know, there's a lot of information out there that we know that we have not released. And the reason why we have not released it is we're looking very forward to the 22nd of this month and the events that's about to unfold.
And folks, instead of being a shit disturber or stirring the pot, maybe you should serve your people, not serve yourself. And today, that runs in today's show. We had the great privilege and honor to speak with Elder Sid Peltier, and he's currently out of BC, British Columbia. So our conversation, his insight, his you know, just his take on things was refreshing, and I think you're really going to enjoy our talk with Elder Sid Peltier.
And Sid is someone who genuinely cares about what's happening in the Métis communities. Let's understand that. He cares about the Métis Nation. So he definitely does. And so we enjoyed the interview, and I think it was a great interview. And so we definitely want y'all to take a listen to that. Now, what I do want to mention before we get into the interview is the controversy that's going on at Queen's University. We support Queen's University making the decision not to stand behind that bogus letter. Let's understand that. We will not focus this show on that at this point in time. But obviously, if people are going to write letters, they need to sign their damn names to a letter and not just call it a collective. And guess what? Somebody did accidentally put their name on the bottom of it, attach their name to the letter, and then they turned around and unattached their name to the letter and then just called it a collective. So an individual put their name on it, took their name off, and then used a collective when they sent the letter to Queen's University. So yeah, I think people should be able to work in an environment where they don't have to worry about losing their jobs. And when you get to the point where you're interfering with people's jobs at a damn university, what has the nation become, man? This is not the love and caringness that the Métis people should be showing one another. Instead, you got a handful of people initiated by the one person. A lot of this drama that's going on out there, and we should be spreading love and not hate. Let's understand that.
Well, this report that was generated, anonymous report sent to Queen's University, really, the person that generated the report, in my opinion, is completely gutless. They just didn't have the balls to put their name to the...
Well, they did originally.
Well, they did originally.
They took it off because that was a uh-oh moment.
Well, the original file with the original name is available, and hopefully Queen's University will do a full investigation. And it's funny that a lot of these, in my opinion, I'll use the word trolls again, that were involved in getting their underwear in a knot about the t-shirt, were also involved in supporting this so-called anonymous report that was sent to Queen's University. So it's the same
You gotta wonder,
gang.
why are they doing it? And that
It's
letter
hate.
was generated by a self-proclaimed white man. And so, you know, why are they doing it? Because what we should be focused on is the Métis Nation, and we should be focused on the transparency. And what the people should be worried about instead of a t-shirt is, where in the hell did all them misappropriated funds go? Where in the hell did it go? Where was the receipts? Why was there documents that had different fonts on it? And I'm so looking forward to this new interim president coming into MNC. You just don't understand how great that's going to be for the Métis Nation. I mean, the gravy train's over. That shit is over. Now comes transparency and fair treatment, and you got people out there fighting to do the right thing for the Métis Nation.
And you know, before we get into our talk with Sid, I think one of the things that bothers me the most as an Indigenous Métis person is to have, I'm not even going to use the word in quotations, I just can't say it, but to have a non-Indigenous person telling everybody who can be Métis or Indigenous, and a lot of the same gang of trolls are following this non-Indigenous person. Who in the hell do you think you are? You're not Indigenous.
And following this white man and letting him turn you against your own Métis brothers
Your own
and sisters.
people.
This white man, self-proclaimed white man, is turning you against your own Métis brothers and sisters. And for what?
Well, that just shows you again the lack of morality that these same gang of trolls are. You're letting a non-Indigenous person dictate to everybody who is Indigenous. Like, what is the payoff to you? And this is my personal opinion. It's almost just like selling your soul to the devil. That's right.
Gravy train's over, so it don't matter what they think their payoff's going to be, because let me tell you something. There's not a damn thing anybody can do to stop this interim president on the 22nd. There ain't a damn thing that can be done about that. There's these group of people that's all about nepotism. Guess what? You ain't going to stop this interim president from doing the right thing for the transparency and fair and equal treatment. Finally, we'll know where all the money's going. We'll know where all the money has went and not went. Finally, we're going to have transparency and truth. And that is what we want, because we want the dollars that come from the federal government to the MNC and other organizations. Guess what? We want to know where the hell that money went, because you have no right, zero right, to hide that information from the Métis people.
And you know, I think when you hear Sid talk, and I think I really like his analogy when he says people are drinking the Kool-Aid, and I have to wonder what Kool-Aid this non-Indigenous person is getting these Indigenous people to drink to turn them
Are they
away
drinking
from
Kool-Aid and playing with slingshots at the same time?
Well, I mean, that's childish. I mean, it's nice to have a slingshot, but I won't even go into the ridiculousness of promoting that, or
yeah, I don't even want to.
It's just not even worth the effort.
But look, today's show was originally going to be on this Queen's University scandal, and we got a lot of information on that. We have people wanting to talk. That's great, but we need to focus really on what's about to happen on the 22nd. And guess what? That is next week, folks. That is just a few days away, and that is going to bring major changes that we know about, but we cannot release it right now at this point in time. But we know the changes will be for the good, and we thank the organizations that stood up, the MNBC, MNS, MNA, MNO. We thank all the organizations that have actually stood up, and guess what? They're making a change for the better, folks, because, you know, when you get somebody who sits in office for so long, I mean, you know, it's time for people to come in that are not used to certain ways, and they can come in and actually change things, make a change for the positive.
That's right. To have real growth and to prosper, you need to get new blood, new ideas in there, and you've got to get rid of, and again, in my opinion, the old dinosaurs that are set in their ways, they're set in getting a certain amount of money, and they've really forgotten what they are there for. What they were elected for is to serve the people, not serve themselves.
And originally we fought, because Chartier was the president, to get rid of the MNC, and we did a real good job of doing that. But then we recognized, hey, we need the MNC right now. And so we need the MNC, and we need the MNC to do the right thing and what it was created to do, and to get rid of all corruption and all nepotism.
And folks, we're heading into, again, historic times for Métis people, and it's time to get rid of the old, bring in the new, and to really prosper, and really remember who we are as Métis people. And again, we're speaking, and you'll hear Sid Peltier.
Yep, here's the interview. Take a listen. Okay, so we have Sid Peltier joining us right now on the show, and he is an elder out in British Columbia. Is that correct, Sid?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, it is.
And you call yourself actually an elder in training.
Well, sometimes I think, Timothy, you're never too old to learn. So it's a handle that First Nations person, seeing that I was trying to become a little more wiser, kind of hung that one on me, and it always stuck with me, at least in my mind.
Oh, yeah. And we'd like to welcome you to the show. You're here with Timothy and Alexandria. And basically, what we wanted to do for this show is give you the opportunity to speak on some of the things that you see is happening that shouldn't be happening, or things that you think should be happening, or basically you can talk about anything you want to talk about. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you.
Okay. All right. Well, that being a Métis and asked to talk about things, that's kind of given me a lot of license there. But I guess in all fairness, our nation is moving in a direction and controlled by, I guess, a number of individuals that are getting older and I think set in their ways. And I don't think there's enough new thought, new blood, new ideas that are come to our nation. And we're now still fighting old ways, what I would call old dinosaurs. And some of these dinosaurs, I think, should be going the way of the original dinosaurs. I think they should be stepping back and you know what? Allow some of our new people, our new thoughts. They don't have to necessarily be young youth all the time, but just let other people kind of help out with moving our nation forward instead of cleaning up constantly what we're finding. These old ways, these old guys hanging on to it. I shouldn't disrespect people like Mr. Chartrand or Clement Chartier, but these folks have been around for so long. They're so set in their ways now, and they become more autocratic than what their position really should be, as a president of MMF or as the president of MNC. And because they've been around for so damn long, that they have a lot of baggage that they're carrying along. It's like dragging a dead horse, to water. They have so much that have been coming to light recently, and I refer to, unfortunately, Mr. Chartier, Clem, with the issues that have risen and meet just shortly now with him. I mean, good Lord. His boss, Mr. Clement, correction, not his boss, I guess it's his boss, when Mr. Chartrand kind of parachuted Clem into the MNS election and more or less indicated, hey, you got to get over there and clean up that place so that we can maintain our power authority base. And unfortunately, I don't think Clem really wanted to go. I think he wanted to stay and hang on to his current paycheck as MNC. And so, going into Saskatchewan, kind of being forced to go in there and try to duke it out with other individuals, including President McCallum, who's been doing a damn good job as it is. So he's in there now to disrupt. And he's created a lot of controversy. His challenge against against the current group there in Saskatchewan, their board, with regards to allowing anybody to self-declare. Anybody that wanted to be able to vote, all they would have to do is self-declare at the election. And I wrote a little bit about it, so I'll just draw a couple of comments. I said, well, if you want to self-declare, hell, I could be from Nova Scotia, just recently moved to Saskatchewan, and I'm going to declare I'm a Métis, walk in there and cast my vote. Then you're looking at identity theft there as well. And I don't think Mr. Chartier or Clem really thought that out when he tried to challenge that. And of course, he lost as usual. I mean, that poor gentleman he's running into a lot of losses and a lot of issues. So now he loses. Where does he go? He goes back as a so-called MNC president, which in 2020 his tenure was over, but there he is hanging on to that paycheck, I guess, to the last bitter moment. I guess.
Well, that moment, Sid, for me to cut in for just a moment, that moment is going to end on the 22nd of this month because they're going to put in an interim president, and it should have been done a long time ago, but is finally going to be done, and so that's going to really take away from the dictators, because it's been a dictatorship is basically the problem that we've been having. There's been no true democracy in the organizations under the rule of some of the people that you refer to as dinosaurs, because they have that dictatorship mentality. And so it's going to be great to see someone step in as an interim president on the 22nd of this month.
That's right, and I was going to get to that, but good that you brought it up, because I think that's a first critical step in actually changing the way these, again, call it the dinosaurs, but the way these older folks have been hanging on now. I think that's a first good step into moving forward and getting a true democracy, like you said. Let's bring some respect back to our nations. I mean, when we have somebody, a position called the president of MNC, he's representing all our nations. And if he's carrying some of this baggage I referred to, be a reason for him to step down. He should have the good grace to step down. But no, he's hanging on to that bloody paycheck still. He's got to tough it out for as long as he can. And now that's where this BOG meeting on the 22nd, I think it's going to be so critical. It's going to be damn important that he is going to be forced to step down. And yes, we will get someone interim. And until we have an election, I think then this interim hopefully will be a little bit more transparent and more inclusive. That's what we need. We need that transparency at the national level. We need to have that inclusiveness. We need to be able to approach our president and also the so-called vice president, another individual I think who's past his prime, but we need that openness with regards to our national president. So Clem's got a lot of issues to deal with, and after the 22nd, maybe he can have some quiet time to go and deal with those issues and then retire, step back, head back to Isle Cross, his home community, I believe it is, and just take some much needed time to himself instead of trying to be so disruptive, instead of hanging on. His day is come and gone, and it's unfortunate. But that's Mr. Chartier, and unfortunately he has to go by what his boss says, and his boss unfortunately is Mr. Chartrand. David Chartrand, the MMF president of Manitoba, he's the real authority behind MNC. That's the guy that's pulling the strings and calling the shots. I mean, that's just, everybody's aware of that. I mean, it's just the way it is, just the way it became. This autocracy just kind of keeps flowing downhill as well. And so Mr. Chartrand is now, in some regards, calling himself the VP of the MNC. I didn't know there was such a position. Maybe there is. I'm just not aware of it. There might be in their policy. I'm not sure. But if there isn't, or there is, they need a constitution. They don't even have a constitution. I mean, that's embarrassing at the national level. And the policies that we have or don't have, lack thereof, another embarrassment. And they've had years and years and years to put something together. They've had years to draw upon other nations' experiences with regards to coming up with a decent constitution, but they haven't, because this gives them more freedom to move, and that's what they've done. They've usurped their own authority by not trying to be inclusive with what they're trying to do, by not trying to be the way they should have been as a president. So Mr. Chartrand, I got to speak one thing about Mr. Chartrand. I got to speak something positive. Many, many years ago, David Chartrand was the guy that got up there and beat his chest to get attention for us Métis people. Not just him, but others as well. But he was the one that really beat his chest hard, and he did a good job. And then as time rolled by, he started becoming more autocratic. He started becoming more the boss. He started becoming more to what I say it's going to be my way. And, he has, or did have, and I'm not sure if he still has, but he had a chance to leave a good legacy. And he's ruining his own chances.
He's already destroyed it, Sid. Sid, he's already destroyed that. I'm going to just go ahead and speak that right off the bat. His attitude, his arrogance, he's destroyed his legacy. We've said before in past shows that he has done good things in the Métis community, but there became a time where he changed. He changed. And so we tried to get him to change back to the way he once was, but he's destroyed his legacy. His legacy now will be the person who tried to get rid of democracy within the Métis Nation.
And that's true. I was trying to be a little bit nicer about it, as you might say, but you know, the facts are the facts. There's no doubt about it. He's become so disingenuous to his own people. Even not too long ago, just recently, he got on social media and he slammed this young group called Red River Echoes, who had some questions that they wanted to ask, and he just slammed them instead of engaging with them. He just outright, I happened to listen to that rant. I thought, holy good Lord, I'm embarrassed for the man to speak that badly about his own people, and they weren't trying to change anything. They were merely asking questions. But he slammed them so hard. And what you can deduce from that, Timothy, I think there's a lot of social unrest within Manitoba as well. I think we have Mr. Good in there, and others are going to try to do a lot of mending fences to be able to. They should be looking within their own backyard. But to do what he did was not right. And as you say, yes, his legacy is not going to be remembered. Usually everything is the last 10% of what anybody ever does is what's remembered the most. Not at the beginning, not in the middle, but usually the last 10%. And his last 10% has been the last 40, 50%, unfortunately. But yes, you're right. He does not and will not be leaving a good legacy. And I know that there are many people in Manitoba. I'm from Manitoba. All my family from Manitoba. They've spread out, of course, but my roots are back in Manitoba. You know, Winnipeg, Portage-la Prairie, St. Francis Xavier. Those are my areas. Those are the areas I went duck hunting with my dad and my uncles and hunted deer and moose. But I still have that areas of fondness in my heart as well. When I say I go home, I'm going home back to Manitoba. And it's unfortunately that we have a leader like that who is not approachable anymore. And it's unfortunate. But anyways, as I said, time will tell. I think his term is going to be coming to a bit of an end as well. Maybe not this year or next year, but he's down the path that he cannot walk back anymore. And that's unfortunate for him. So his issues are going to be felt in Manitoba, and eventually it's going to be like British Columbia. They're going to be pushed back. And there was strong pushback here in our province, and it was good pushback. It had to be done. It had to be said. And that's something that we here in British Columbia, you know, really do applaud. Ms. Belcall, unfortunately, our president, or I guess now suspended president, I would say soon to be ex-president, I would hope. I must say I'm in the camp of the board. I'm in the camp of our nation. I quite agree with that. What started me down this whole process, I was just a dumb old helicopter pilot that over the years, you know, paid attention to my own community up in Terrace, and then started getting interested in our people on a provincial level. But I never really looked further out from that until Ms. Belcall became president. Within a couple of years of her presidency, I started hearing stories about our citizens and our staff that were being abused, if you will, forced to leave. It was, I couldn't believe it. And because I've been with our nation for over 20 years now, you get to know the staff, you get to know some of the citizens. And when you're talking on the phone to some of the staff who you know but not really that well, and they're in tears, and they're just so appreciative to have somebody to listen, that will listen to their comments, their stories, and you figure, how could a person like this be so bad to her own people? Timothy, the stories that some of the board members and staff told me, unbelievable. How a person could be so authoritative like that and hurt her own people so badly. I couldn't believe it. So I got interested and I started pushing back in my own small way. And I discovered there were other like-minded individuals like me out there. And we started talking. We said, things that have to change here. And that was 2.5 years ago when I got involved with this. And now we're at a point, I hope, where we have a board of 9. We have a board of 10. I have to correct myself on that one. But that one particular board member who was up in my region, Region 6, she still has her authority, I think, with the previous president or suspended president. I would hope that this individual would come out and say, look, I really do align myself with the board of 9. I want to be called the board of 10. I would like to forgive that person. If she would declare that, I would really want to forgive her and welcome back with open arms as a board of 10. Things in our nation now, Timothy, are really going well. I don't know how much you follow our website and hear about what's happening.
Alexandria is actually the researcher. She
really going well. There is so much transparency.
Alexandria does all the research. She follows everything, and she's.
What's that?
I said Alexandria actually does all the research and she follows everything. You got anything you'd like to add to this, Alexandria?
The only thing that I have to add, Sid, is that I really wanted you to have the opportunity to say your piece, because I've been following what's been going on extensively, and I think that as a Métis person, the thing that bothers me and a lot of other people that I've been talking to on social media is the lateral violence and the lateral damage that is going on when your president, I'm not even going to say her name because in my mind, this is my personal opinion, she's not fit to be a president, so I'll omit her name. After she was suspended, all the slashing people, violence and derogatory comments, I really had to sit back and digest all of that and to see that, you know, it showed me that a lot of the individuals that were making the comments, the aggression that was coming out, you know, the first thing that pops in my mind is they should really sit with an elder because they forgot who we are as a people. And one of the individuals that had started a Facebook page that was against everything that the group of 9 was doing even had the audacity to call me a fetish Métis. And I thought, okay, well, this is not even logical. You know, this is just how they get on some kind of a tirade. They're not even speaking with any kind of intelligence, education, or knowledge. And I thought, this isn't who we are as a people, because of course anybody following BC, the suspended president chose the colonial route instead of dealing with the Senate. And you know, all the facts were all there, but these little gang of people that were, you know, in her you know, her little groupies, as I call them, and that's my opinion. It doesn't matter what you said, they were just dead set against supporting the suspended president. And that whole arena of what was going down, and you know, the lateral violence and lateral damage, showed me and showed a lot of other people that, you know, these individuals forgot what it's like to be Métis. And again, that's my personal opinion.
Well, I think it's a very good opinion.
Yeah, I just, you know, because even the stuff is going on now.
It really
I mean,
is.
yeah.
The naysayers that I call. When she challenged our nation, it wasn't just the board of 9. She was challenging Del Call's counsel when during those 2 days of court that I listened to, her defense was so weak, it was like trying to roll a rock uphill. That was my analogy. I had actually wrote about that. And it was an embarrassment for what she was trying to get. She wanted her picture hung up on the wall again. That was one of her critical comments that she wanted done. When her lawyer even said that, I could almost hear the embarrassment in her voice as well. But, you know, moving along, it was called by the judge an abuse of process. And it was so true. She was just abusing a process, a colonial process, I might add, too, as well, that she should have endeared herself and went to the Senate. Now, she couldn't go to the Senate because she was trying to dissolve the Senate, her and one of her previous board members. So the Senate, she doesn't have any respect for the Senate whatsoever. So now she has no real alternative. I don't think she's able to appeal now. I think that date has come and gone. She could still sue in the Supreme Court with regards to the nation. I don't know if she's going to do that because who's paying her lawyer fee? That was pretty bloody expensive. It happens to be the same, I believe, as the MMF uses. So I think she's going to be into Mr. Chartrand for a lot of cash that she's going to have to be expected to pay back in some fashion. And I know with her and Revenue Canada, they're having some issues. She's had some perks that were given to her, like her condo, for instance, her furniture, her gas and vehicle, etc. There's been a number of perks. And her travel expenses during COVID, I understand, approaching $100,000 plus. Now, this is during COVID. So she's running back and forth to Manitoba to come around with her fellow president. And double dipping possibly with some of her expenses. Again, this is allegations that I've been told. I don't know how correct that is, but she does have issues with Revenue Canada that she's going to have to resolve, that's for sure.
Well, let me ask you this. How do you feel about that, about her condo and car and all this and the over $100,000? How does that make you feel? Because I want to touch on that a little bit, because it does not seem right that she was getting, to us anyway, it doesn't seem right that she was getting all these perks for being president, and that's what I believe takes away from the people really wanting to do the right thing, because here comes all the money and all the ways you can take advantage of the system, and all that money could have went to people and served people better, I think. But how do you feel about it?
I feel bloody angry. I'm really bloody angry. And that was a precedent that she set right on the onset when she was elected president. I understand for the first, I'm not sure, first, second, or third year, but she was approving her own expenses. She was writing her own checks for her own expenses. If you could believe that, there's the hen house door left wide open for the fox to come in and gorge themselves. How correct or how true that is, from a couple of people that are, call it in the know, I would say it was very true. But again, I can only comment that it's an allegation. And I'm sure it could be proved fairly easily just by going back and finding, well, checks that were written by whom, depending on what they were written for, what expense, etc. So it would be hard to prove, nonetheless. But the point is, she had basically met with Clem, met with David, and they gave her this barrel of Kool-Aid to drink down, and she drank the whole damn thing, and she became what they are. And unfortunately, that's where her genuineness stopped. I actually voted for her. I have to admit it. I did vote for her at the suggestion of somebody else. And again, a mistake was made on my part, well, such as it is. But the point of it is now she's no longer involved in an acting president. She's suspended, and I can't see her staying on any longer. Things have gone too far past her now. The only thing she is, and it still makes me upset, is that she's still collecting a paycheck. That's got to end. It's got to end soon as well. We got to cut her loose, send her along her way, move her to Manitoba if she wants to, or retire like Clem, move back to wherever she wants to live, and just stay out of politics. I mean, you heard a lot of people, you heard a lot of our programs. She hung on to, she was involved with our portfolio of our land, and I'm not sure the name of the portfolio, but it was the biggest part of the portfolio. And 2 years ago, it was already at $17 million. And so we said, well, where's the money being spent? Well, it wasn't. It wasn't being spent at all. She threw out a couple little programs. You want to fix up your house if you qualify. And apparently, even some of seniors weren't able to qualify with the criteria that she had. So, again, it was embarrassing. But now I think we're able to utilize those funds. I don't want them to go back. I mean, if they get clawed back, we won't get them again. So we've got people now that are going to start utilizing these funds for what they're intended for, not for somebody to say, hey, I've got this much control or this much authority. I think a misspelled call we don't need her back anymore, and I think she should just retire, go the way of the other dinosaurs. I guess that's the easiest way to say it.
And
And I hope that sometime.
go ahead, Sid.
Yeah, go ahead, Doug.
So, Sid,
Well, I was just going to say, I hope that sometime soon that we resolve this wage thing, and the fact that she's not going to the Senate and she's either going to challenge us in the Supreme Court. Well, then let her do it on her own dime, or go back and see David Chartrand and borrow a few more dollars.
absolutely. And as an elder, Sid, in your opinion, why is it so hard for a lot of Métis individuals to embrace truth, transparency, and accountability? It's almost, that's one concept that, like I've said previously, it doesn't matter how many facts you put right in front of them, their blind dedication to corrupt leaders, I just don't get it. What's in it for them? Are they after fame, fortune, and unlimited expense accounts? I'm not quite sure why, they have, some of these corrupt leaders have so blind allegiance by, a select, and I keep calling them, and again, it's my opinion, groupies.
Well, Alexandra, if you were to take a person off the street and give them $1 million to look after, where they've never had experience of dealing with that kind of money, nor do they have the experience in how to deal with that kind of money, but then you thrust this power on them, in other words, you make them a president, and then you put in an area of a $60, $70, or $80 million budget, you know what, it's easy to be, call it corrupted, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And so if you've never had the experience of dealing with large sums of money and a position of authority, yes, it can get to you. Yes, you start drinking that Kool-Aid, and yes, it does change you. And after a while, you start figuring, well, this is mine. I'm going to be dealing with this. And the fact that I'm dealing with this huge budget, well, I should be allowed some largesse rather. I should be allowed to go out for that good meal once in a while. I should be allowed to have a condo so that I can maintain the status that I've been pushed into, thrust into. Power corrupts. Power corrupts absolutely, and it's usually money and authority that does that.
And you know what? The key factor that is missing from that equation is people. You should be working for your people, serving your people, not serving yourself.
Yeah, and again, very true. When you become self-serving like that, you're not representing your people any longer. I mean, if you throw out the odd crumb, but you're keeping the whole cake, that's not serving your people any longer. And I think that's Ms. Delcol. I don't know about her past history prior to becoming a president. I'm not sure. I didn't follow her. I must say she was a women's rep. I understand that. I don't know how well she did or didn't do. It was only when she became president that I discover and see the cracks. And the lady has a temper. And I must say, her husband has a temper. The 2019 AG held in Prince George, there was this smaller stature individual came up to David Peltier. It happens to be my son, by the way. He's a lawyer for the Department of Justice here in Vancouver. Anyways, this guy came up and threatened my son to his face and said, "You're going down, and you're going down hard." And David, my son, didn't realize who it was at the time, and then, of course, it became evident who it was, and it was her husband. She has issues with regards to anger management. There's no doubt about that, and I have to say it. I know that maybe she can come back at me with a lawyer and say, well, you know what, you're calling me an anger management person. The fact is, there's enough people to justify that, including our legal counsel at the time, who used to have to placate her quite a bit. But, just with regards to Delcol, she can't come back anymore. We're doing so well without her. We don't need her any longer. And even Facebook now, those that are on, provide rants on her behalf, you don't see that much anymore about defending her. We have an individual in our province here. This individual is very, very disingenuous to our younger women. I know they tried to engage with this individual, and I read some of his posts, I guess, or his rants, and myself and a couple of other elders had to caution our young women, please disengage with him. And apparently he's got a bit of a not so good background with regards to the law, if you will. And I think he fancies himself as a bit of a litigator. Well, I think whatever he's learned on the other side of the docket. But the thing about it, it's almost like he gets on his white horses and he goes tilting at windmills. He gets on these social media, these Facebook, and he just posts a lot of things, and this is going to happen, and that's going to happen, and round 2 is coming up. Well, hell, we're at round 11 by now, and round 2 hasn't even surfaced yet. I actually had to chuckle, and I shouldn't be laughing like this, but someone called him, what do you call this, a keyboard warrior. I never heard that expression before. I had to get a bit of a chuckle, but that's his platform, is to do this. And really, when you do that so often, it's just that people will step back and they will be concerned, like, holy gosh, if this guy ever became an authority figure, wow, he's pretty heavy-handed with his words and his actions, potential actions.
Well, let me speak to what you're just saying right here for a moment, because you're talking about Facebook posts, and I wanna reference Louis Jagger real quick. We posted a photo of him wearing one of our T-shirts, and went on there complaining, oh my God, I can't believe that he's wearing a Metis Warrior T-shirt. And what people don't understand is we are a show. Lewis is not affiliated with Metis Warrior. Lewis doesn't agree with everything that we say or do, but we do see eye to eye on a lot of things. And if you want to wear a shirt that represents a Metis show that fights against corruption, by the way, and you have a problem with somebody that's wearing a shirt of a show that fights corruption, then I would say these people need to look into themselves, because obviously the problem's within themselves. Because if you scroll back down and look at all of our shows, what are we fighting for? We're fighting for fair and equal treatment for all people. We're fighting against injustices against the Métis. And how is that wrong for someone to wear our shirt? Sure, we may say some things or do some things that Lewis is not happy about or he doesn't agree with, but overall, he does support what we do. And so he showed the support by wearing the shirt. Now, for me, when I look at a Facebook picture, I don't look at what the person is wearing. And so for all the men and women out there that want Lewis to dress for them, I would tell them he is happy in the relationship that he's in. He dresses to please himself. He doesn't dress to please anybody else. And I also want to make the point that if you listen to a music and you listen to a band and you wear the t-shirt of that band, it doesn't mean that you have an affiliation with that band. It means that you like the band. And so they've completely twisted and contorted that picture 100%, because he was just showing support for who? A Métis organization that's out there fighting against corruption.
And I think before, Sid, and I think this individual should hold off on making that batch of popcorn, because why isn't there this outrage, or even there, there's a dead silence all over the Métis communities across Canada in regards to the allegations of Clem Chartier. Why? People have to ask themselves, if a t-shirt is going to get their underwear in an uproar, why isn't there any comments about the alleged allegations about a leader, a national leader, Clem Chartier? And then you've got a so-called minister doing a meme contest that is a racial meme contest. I just, they get their underwear in a tizzy about stupid things where they should be worried about their national leader. They should be worried about a so-called minister running a racial meme contest all over social media. These individuals are not, in my personal opinion, fit to run any Métis organization, but yet somebody puts on a T-shirt to support a show about corruption, and everybody's in an uproar. And it's funny to see that most of the people that chimed in on that post against Lewis are the ones that are dead set supporters with the suspended president. So you can see what's going on in the back scenes.
And more to Alexandria's point there, what should piss people off is not the T-shirt, is that damn audit that was done in 2018 by the MNC. And by the way, they couldn't even call it an audit because why? They hid receipts. They didn't show accurate receipts. Paperwork was tampered with. There was forms and paperwork that had different font types, different fonts. Now you tell me, how does that happen? And then so it's called the financial review now because they couldn't actually conclude with an audit because they didn't have enough information. Enough information wasn't given to them. So when you look at the misappropriation of all that funding, that's what should piss people off, not a T-shirt.
And again, that's going back to that point. That's why we have to have new people. That's why we have to remove the dinosaurs that are there, walking operates still on this ground. That's why we have to get more people involved, people that are going to be transparent, people that are going to be inclusive, people that are going to be honest for a change. I mean, one of the things I was going to bring up too is what I like to, before I chat with regards to Will Gooden, he's one of my favorite topics, by the way, but
yeah.
One of the things that I'd like to bring up, and I've paid attention to these. I'm not a facts and figures guy per se, but after a while you begin to notice patterns. And I noticed it quite dramatically this spring here in BC when we had our AGM. And the number of people that attended, I think it was 300, maybe 400 at the most, but the number percentage-wise that were the naysayers, as I call them. They would vote against anything no matter what the hell it was, or they would argue about anything just because MNC or MNBC rather wanted to put something positive forward. And that percentage was so small that in some cases maybe only 15%. And then I looked at those of us. I call myself us as part of the board, part of our nation, part of the group of people that want to move this forward in a positive way. So I say us. And there were probably 25 to 35% of us. But then there was the balance of people that voted, and they were approximately 50, in some cases 60%. And I call that the silent majority. That's the majority, Alexandria, Timothy, that you don't hear about. They're busy with their lives. They're busy with COVID. They have a paycheck to earn. They have personal issues. They have health issues. And they're out there just doing the thing. But every once in a while, that silent majority listens. And they listen to who's beating their chest the loudest and the hardest. Well, when you do that, it's easy to see who is. It's the individuals like this individual from BC or Mr. Chartier, for instance, when he slams down the Red River Echoes, or Mr. Chartrand, rather, stand corrected, Mr. Chartier when he's slamming the MNS, the president there, Mr. McCallum, President McCallum. It's that silent majority, and the more it seems that they beat their chest, the more people pull back. And I've noticed that over the years. Being my age, you do, after a while, see trends. And that kind of leads me into Mr. Gooden. Again, my favorite subject. I made a couple of notes here, but I'll read my first sentence that I made here. He is fun to listen to. And I mean that in a way that no matter what he says, he's always trying to hurt others. He's always trying to meddle in other provinces' affairs, as well as his own, but that's usually quieted down. But he'll do anything to meddle in other people's. He must be, his boss, Mr. Chartrand, must have, when he hired the puppet, said, hey, go out there and be like me and create a lot of discord, etc. Well, he's doing a good job, but what he's not realizing. What's that, sorry?
No, we didn't say nothing. We didn't say anything.
Oh.
You must have had an interruption on the line.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, a bit of an echo effect. But anyways, what there's that silent majority from time to time are listening, and they don't like what they're hearing. They're saying, well, he's a nosy body. Why is he always poking his nose in others? I don't think I like this guy. And he's finding his following is becoming less and less. Now, of course, you'll always have the same chiming in to say, oh, yeah, I'm such a good guy, and they'll all pat him on the bum like they do this other individual here in BC, this keyboard warrior, as he's called. But Mr. Gooden just seems to go out of his way to affect people in a negative way, and he is becoming affected in a way that he's probably not even aware. The silent majority are passing judgment on him, and I don't think he's aware of that. He's just so caught up in his own rhetoric that he's not able to look around and say, well, Jesus, it's always the same people that are patting me on the bum saying I'm doing a good job, but what about Joe Blow out there that's working all the time, the one that never says much, but there he is listening. And when it comes time to vote, I think in Manitoba there might be a bit of a surprise here over the next year or two when it's time for an election. Now, I know that Mr. Chartrand keeps a tight control on the election by his criteria that you have to be able to go through before you can run for office. It's amazing. I've read some of that, but nonetheless, there's a movement in Manitoba that's starting. And I think Mr. Gooden eventually, when it becomes more apparent, is going to be busy trying to put out those fires. But he's not helping himself out by being as he is with the other provinces. Not one little bit. And being as silly as he is, and some of our young women have tried to engage with him, and he's not a very polite individual, but the nicest thing when I say he is fun to listen to, there was an individual that was having I guess you could say, a debate online. And this individual came up with some excellent points. Well, Mr. Good couldn't do anything about it. Listening to Mr. Goodon and debating him on some comments. And so he became a little bit aggressive, I guess you might say, and somewhat more dismissive because she was a younger person. And this person is attending university, so they're not that young, but nonetheless, he was being somewhat dismissive. And she was quite shocked and quite surprised and quite disappointed that she was being treated like this. I refer to him as the small dinosaur, trying to grow up to be a large one perhaps, but heading in the same direction as all dinosaurs just, end up. But when he was making this argument, debating rather, this individual, and I think he was from Saskatchewan, as I mentioned, and this individual was using pure logic, and Will Gooden found himself back into a corner, and he couldn't argue his way or debate his way out of it. All he could do was guy off with some snide kind of comment and then delete his posts and delete his comments afterwards. And that seems to be the way of Mr. Gooden. He doesn't have a lot of bottom, a lot of sand, as I call it. He's just a bit of a superficial where he can only make comments, and he was used to getting his own way and still is. But his meddling is costing him a lot of his popularity, his following. And as I mentioned before, nobody likes to hear people all the time with a negative comment. You get tired of it.
Yeah.
If you're going to have something negative to say, then come up with a decision as to what should be a solution. When I ran my helicopter company, I would tell my people, if you have a problem, come to me with your problem, but come to me with a solution as well. So let's just not the negativity, let's get a solution. And quite often what they advise is what we did and carried through, and it worked great. So Mr. Gooden hasn't got that part of the formula down yet, where he has what he can do, what he should do, because that would sort of pin him down, and I don't think he's able to. Again, he doesn't have a lot of sand and a lot of bottom. But nonetheless, he is fun to listen to.
Yeah, and I want to go back to your point about the few followers that he does have. That let's just call it 15 people, although I think the regulars are a lot less. Does Will Gooden not realize that there's thousands and thousands and thousands of Métis people out there? So you have let's say 15 people that are buttering you up on Facebook. Okay, but what about the point that you were making, Sid? What about the rest of the people? There's elections that's going to come up, and I think they have a false sense of how the elections is going to go, and that they're not realizing Chartier is going to be replaced on the 22nd for the MNC, and from what I'm hearing, that we will the criteria will be changing for the election for the MMF. This is what's going around. There's going to be change, and so Will Grudon is going to be standing there wondering what happened. How did everybody lose their seats? How did everybody? Because you're pissing the people off, like you said, the thousands and thousands of people that are going to be voting. You're pissing them off for the 15. This buttering you up on Facebook.
Exactly. And again, this goes back to, Timothy, to like attracts like. It's an old saying that I think everybody understands the meaning of it, but the ramification of people that hear what you say and like what you say, and they pat you on the bum. Like, I go back to this individual in BC where, they say you're doing such a great job, but you don't hear them same people. You don't see Mr. Chartrand or Clem or Mr. Gooden or even our suspended president get on the public platform on Facebook or social media and say, oh, this individual's doing such a good job on our behalf. Even his own president in the community that I think he's part of the executive board. But you never see them on Facebook, social media saying, yeah, you're doing a real good job. I mean, that gentleman is setting himself up to be a potential candidate for getting tossed under the bus if things happen to go too far the other way against them. And it's headed that way too. This is a slow movement that's starting to get started. We have that group of 4 now in our national makeup out of 5. In other words, our 4 nations out of 5 that have put forward this BOG meeting coming June 22nd. Enough is enough is enough. And why it took so long? Well, a lot of people have their own challenges just within their province, looking after their own citizens. And then, of course, the day-to-day life expectancies and challenges that life throws at you. But now, enough was enough. And that's where Mr. Chartrand and Clem have brought that attention on themselves in a negative way. Finally, everybody's saying, hey, we're not being represented. What's going on with our dollars, our money's there? We're being threatened that you're going to be cut off? No. So now it's starting to happen. So I think now, after the 22nd, whoever we put in interim, Mr. Morin perhaps, or whoever it might be, I think now we could say this could be our first step towards a real national unity. And I've got a lot of thoughts and ideas about that. And I know MNO is a major. We haven't talked about them.
Sid, I want to talk on a point that you just mentioned before we blow past that. Okay, so
sure.
I personally do not know a lot about Morin. I don't know a lot about Morin, but what I do know is that Lewis is supporting Morin. For me personally, I would love to have Lewis as president of the MNC. But if Lewis is backing Morin, then I can only trust his judgment and in that, because I don't know a lot about the guy. But what I will tell you is, I hope that this guy will not be. I hope that whoever gets in the MNC does not become part of the problem, because we already went through that. I hope they become the solution and we get the transparency back. So I'm supporting whoever, and to be honest with you, anybody's going to be an improvement over Chartier. Anybody.
And also, Timothy, this position is an interim position as well until whoever decides to run when they decide to actually have and hold an election. This position would be an interim position. Now, if this individual chose to run, well, okay, fair enough. But at the moment would be an interim until such time as they could put a date for an election.
Yeah.
So, and I do believe Mr. Morin has been or was a previous MNC as well, president. We all have our challenges. We all have our background, our dirty laundry, if you will. But, I think anything now would be better than what we've got. This is an end of an era that's happening, and we've got to be around to make sure that the new era begins in a real positive way. And that was going to be some of my closing comments as well is, we are all challenged with day-to-day life, but we put our faith in our leaders. We put our faith in our regional representatives. We put our faith in our presidents, our provincial presidents, and we put our faith in our national president, our national leaders. So all these leaders, we expect that they're going to do the best that they can. But if they're there too long, then there's that thing called money and power seem to edge their way in, and you drink the Kool-Aid and you become effective, and you become somewhat corrupt. And for such a length of time that Mr. Chartrand, well, in this case Clem, has held that position, it's really time to clean house. It's time to take that rug outside, beat the hell out of it, get all the dust out of it, and make sure the floor is swept clean, and let's start anew again. And I think when we get to that point, then we're going to see a stronger constitution. Then we're going to see proper bylaws. And then I think we can turn our attention away from this infighting and actually discuss where is the future of our Metis nations, and I say that plural. Where's that future going to come? Where's that going to take us? What's our short-term goal? And by short-term, I mean the next 4 to 5 years, and our long-term for the next 50 years, where our children's children are going to be able to have a legacy that we started, something positive. And I think that's critical, and the two have to line up. Our short-term goal and our long-term goal have to line up. Like when I was flying, I used to, in navigation, you always had a spot in front of you on the map that you followed, then you had a long point away, 20, 30, whatever miles away, and you flew a straight line between the two so that you didn't deviate from course. And I think that's what we have to do. We need short-term, so we need some good, strong planning. We need the start of a good, strong constitution on a national level, and we need to strengthen our own constitutions. They are a living document. They're a living thing that we just have to keep strengthening. But we are. It's starting to happen. President McCallum, he's got some work ahead of him. But he started out with a strength of conviction that with regards to who can vote has to be a registered member. I think that was a good conviction to stand by. We in BC have done the same thing, even though our so-called president, who signed off on all these cards, then tried to tear down he's such an individual to even think about and doing that. It's like running hot and cold. One day you're hot, one day you're cold. Good Lord.
Yeah.
That kind of a person doesn't belong with any kind of authority. So I think overall, this is our first start, guys. I think this is our first start with regards to a new type of blood that's going to come into our MNC, where we can all get behind. And Manitoba eventually will come in, maybe not right away. They've I think their last AGM, they all voted overwhelmingly to go out on their own. Well, by all means, if you feel you have to. But there's always going to be another force of...
Well, here's a suggestion, Sid. Once the MNC is reestablished, if Manitoba doesn't want to do the right thing, well, hey, put up another organization in Manitoba that will do the right thing, because at the end of the day, you got the MNC, you got all the other Métis organizations saying, hey, this one group is not wanting to come on board and be transparent and fair and equal, then maybe they shouldn't be getting the money for the Métis in Manitoba.
And you know what, Timothy? That's how it starts. Exactly like that. Where there's a leadership across the nations, and then one reluctant province or one province that is being controlled too strongly, others start to speak up. And yes, you're right. That's how it starts.
Yeah. Probably going to have some negative stuff to say about it, so.
Well, I got to say then, maybe enjoy the popcorn. I guess that's going to be my additional last comment.
Yeah. I hope you enjoyed the popcorn. All right, Sid, thank you very much. You got our number, so you save our number if you ever need to call us. We appreciate it.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.